to do the next session, that is decision making in L&D, a simple logic method. For this, I would request Mr. Amit Anand, Head of Executive Development, Kirloskar Limitless. With over 24 years of experience, he serves as the Head of Executive Development at Kirloskar Limitless, one of India's leading brand. So Amit leads the design and delivery of executive development programs for both internal and external clients. Driving leadership capabilities and organizational growth, Amit has been recognized for his strategic approach to learning and leadership development, experiential learning, executive coaching, and tailored development, frameworks that align people potential with business performance. Over to you.
Like I said, there's a lot that has been said today, and I got this about 48 or 72 hours before this particular topic. Can you make the head or tail of it? Yes or no? Because I'm still trying to figure it out. Still not been able to. So I thought I'll just put my spin on it. Okay, and that's what I intend to do. Decision making in learning and development, a simple logic method, even a simple logic method is kind of an incomplete sentence, right? It's grammatically not correct if you were to look at it. Anyway, so first of all, thank you very much to Empire Forums for this opportunity. What we want to talk about today are certain things which are the backbone of what we do as learning and development practitioners. And a lot of times what happens is that those particular concepts and fundamentals are dismissed as intellectual fluff, okay? There are a lot of changes that are happening in learning and leadership development with the advent of artificial intelligence, AR, VR, etc. But I think some of those pieces, if not done right, then these things which are at our disposal will not be utilized correctly. Okay, recently I was listening to a talk from Ken Robinson. I don't know if anybody knows Ken Robinson. And he said, you know, at times it does happen, and perhaps you would have seen this. You are running a workshop, and in the middle of the workshop, you'll find people who are just scribbling or drawing something on a piece of paper. Right? Does that happen? Right? And there was this one woman who was drawing something, and the instructor went to that woman and said, what is it that you're drawing? And she said, I am drawing God. And he said, well, but nobody has seen God. And she said, well, they will in a minute, you know, once I'm done, that sort of a thing. But what could be the reason that this sort of a thing happens is something which perhaps should make you think and mull when it comes to making content, interventions, or learning solutions effective. What I have understood is that if the content is effective, then there's a greater likelihood of people paying more attention and understanding that there is something in it for me which is going to help me to do something that I'm expected to do, right? So let's begin with the first piece, which is something that happens with all of us, which is you will walk into a senior leadership's cabin, and that person would have a problem at hand and would also have a solution at hand. Does that happen or not? And how often does it happen that you get to actually weigh in on the problem and become a part of the solution-making process? A lot of times, it becomes a little difficult to actually work with very senior leaders because they have everything sorted out. They know everything. And I think one of the things that is extremely important is the courage to be able to have meaningful conversations with them. Okay? I don't know if it has happened with you or not, but it has happened with me. Very often, a leader would begin with a problem statement, which kind of changes by the end of the conversation. The problem statement changes. Right? And that part is something which is the right outcome. Because the problem statement, the new one, is the correct one. But how do we pursue that journey is something to think about. So this is the stuff that I was speaking about, which is that, sometimes we tend to just get in to these conversations, listen to some of our senior leaders, and just do what you can call order fulfillment. Yeah? Amit, can you just do a conflict management workshop for me? And that's pretty much the end of it. And it's a very, very tricky thing to do because there are large egos to manage as well, right? But if you just completely agree and fold the first time around when you're working with senior leaders and end up doing what they want you to do, what can also happen is that you find that you have not been able to actually support them much in their own business goals. Okay, so they tell you something, and then you line up facilitators, and you get the calendar moving, and the nominations are sent out, etc. And then the workshop is done, and then the workshop does not bear any fruit, and then what we get in learning and development community is a lot of flack as a result of it. Does it happen or not? What's the point of it? I mean, it's not effective. But the problem actually was there right at the onset, okay, which is that we could not consult properly with the client or with the customer, which is an extremely important part, right? So otherwise, this is what ends up happening, right? We put in a lot of effort and we do something, pedantically and properly, but the final solution is of no use because it is not serving the right problem statement. And the right problem statement, in fact, has not been discovered to begin with, right? So how do we deal with that problem? And there are certain things that we have continued with, and they do not fit in. Certain terminologies, for that matter. Now, you would know about training need analysis, right? Let's do training need analysis. It is one of the most erratic ways of understanding the problem statement. And it must not be lost on us, right? What we essentially should and must try to do is something called performance needs assessment. And there's a complete subject dedicated to that line of work, which is extremely essential for you to be able to become an extremely effective business partner, irrespective of whatever function you are in. It might be human resources, it might be learning and development, it might be IT for that matter, okay? But that would be the right way to consult with people, to become effective as a business partner with them. Now, performance consulting, like I said, is a subject which is dedicated to this kind of consulting work. It was brought up in a book, which is, the name is Performance Consulting, okay? And this is what it says. The principle is start with what must be done, not what must be taught. You understand what I'm saying? That if I have a bunch of service engineers and I do not know what they're expected to do, okay, then I would not know what are their performance gaps. If I were to study their life, figure out what is it that they do on a day-to-day basis, do a task listing properly, and then figure out if there is something to the effect of dissatisfaction at the customer end, which particular task is it that these people are not able to do well? I would figure out the gap in their performance, and from there will emanate your learning objectives. So it's not just a very arbitrary sort of an exercise that you tripes into the room of a senior leader and you say, what do you think these people need to do differently? And they, from the top of their head, because they haven't really mulled a lot and they have not done that sort of analysis, they will just regurgitate something or the other, and then you start working on it. And then you end up creating something which is absolutely futile and of no use, right? So I would very strongly recommend that this is a path that should be pursued by us learning and development and leadership development practitioners. And this is the book that you might want to get your hands on. It will help you a lot. Everything that we do, okay, has to help the business. The business has some expectations set with the customer. Either you're giving a service or you're giving a product. And your workforce, the human resources that we have in the organizations, are the ones behind the provision of that service or that product. And that service is given to the customer and the product is given to the customer when these people run a series of tasks effectively, which we can also say they carry out a performance. When that performance is done well, that service is right, and it provides satisfaction to the customer, the product is right, and to the satisfaction levels of the customer. Therefore, performance consulting is the only way. Okay? Any questions you might have? Any insights? Okay. All right, so agree to expectations first and then count results. Now, one of the things that we have been talking about, and the speaker of the day in the morning, Sumit also spoke about this, was everybody keeps talking about return on investment. And I think one of the methods that we use is the Kirkpatrick method. What is it? Reaction, learning, behavior, result. Isn't it? Now, if you were to think about it, and this is the paradigmic shift which is required when you're working with your client, because you do not land yourself into that corner, that what is the ROI? ROI is return on investment. Can you tell me anybody, if there's anybody in this room who could tell me, how can learning and development alone contribute to ROI? Is it possible? Give me a yes or a no. Absolutely no. And we can spar on that idea throughout the day. Now, if you look at performance as such, like I said before, there's a performance that you need to carry out, then only you give that service to these people, and then they keep coming back to you. You give them the product, they keep coming back to you, and that's how top lines and bottom lines are built, right? But performance is not alone dependent on the capability of your people. Therefore, what you must talk about with the clients is return on expectations, not return on investment. And here's how it goes. Performance is essentially a tripod stool, okay? This is by the way, from IKEA. This model is available. Right at the seat, you've got performance, you've got 3 legs to it. The first leg is, what are the factors which are intrinsic to people? Competencies, skills, attitudes, etc. Intrinsic to the individual, the target audience for whom you are creating a learning solution. With me so far? Now, the second one is the second leg, which is factors intrinsic to the organization. Is the environment good? I mean, you've got somebody who is competent, who has got all the skills, you know, all the tricks in the bag that person's got, but works in a toxic environment or an environment which does not actually provide certain things required in order to carry out that performance. Approvals don't come in, there's a lot of obstructions, there are a lot of deterrents. The environment does not support you in spite of the fact that you're the perfect guy to do the job. What will learning and development do there? The third one is extrinsic to the organization. COVID happened, right? Everybody, you know, struggled with it. Businesses also struggled with it, especially in the kind of business that we are in. I mean, we work for Kirloskar, by the way, that company. You would know about Kirloskar, right? It's a true blue Maharashtrian engineering organization, started in 1888, 138 years old. So we've got about 7 companies that we work for within the Kirloskar Group. Okay? It's me and Siddharth. We run the Executive Development Center, and we cater to their requirements and also to the requirements of external clients, right? So in COVID, there were certain things which were not available. Supply chains got disrupted, got deeply affected. And you didn't have certain things because they could not get to your door, and therefore you could not reach those numbers. So the performance could not happen. Factors extrinsic to the organization. You have these 3 coming together, that's when you talk about ROI. What I can talk about as a learning and development guy is ROE, return on expectations, that there are certain behaviors which, when demonstrated, that performance will come out nicely, provided the conditions for that performance are also met. Okay? So, I mean, whenever I sit down with clients, I invariably will steer them to ROE from ROI. Yeah? Okay. Can I get some water? Please, thank you. Okay, so I think we have some talks and conversations on this as well. I'm going to connect it to the same piece that I began with, which is that this is not intellectual fluff. This is extremely essential. To design a future for someone, you must truly understand them in the present. Now, this is something that has come across as a new concept to us, which is human-centric design. It basically means human is at the center of the effort that you're putting in when it comes to creating a learning solution. Isn't it? It is for them. This is not something new. It's just a new spin has been provided to it or on it. If you know about Knowles, do you know about Knowles? Malcolm Knowles? Anybody? That guy came up with the concept of andragogy. Until now, till date, when we are working on learning interventions, we talk about, well, these are the pedagogies we have put in the program. Do you know what is pedagogy? Paid children, they're not consulted when you create learning for them. This is something which is a new spin on the same concept, which is andragogy. That your people, your target audience, they are the ones who would decide what is it that they have to learn. Okay? You want to make them successful. So when you take a performance consulting approach, which is a simple logic, as is the topic, you would see that you're able to cater to the requirements that they have so that they can become successful. And when they become successful, they are able to grow, and that is as human-centric as you can possibly be. Isn't it? My time's up? Okay, all right, I'll hurry up. Great, so change succeeds when visible sponsors lead it. This is another one which is kind of a common sense that you have to work very closely with the leaders. Again, connects to the point that I had made previously. The only way of effective connection is when you actually bring performance into the picture. What is it that your people need to deliver by the end of the day? Studying their performance is what will make that connection with the leader also extremely, extremely deep. Because at the end of the day, when their people deliver, they shine, and the leaders themselves will also shine. So what's in it for them? What's in it for the audience? What's in it for the leader? Once you're able to ascertain that, then it becomes a lot more easier to work closely with them and give to them what will actually help them, rather than just agreeing to whatever they have asked you to do. Okay? So you need to have the backing of your leaders. That is what we're trying to establish here. And the backing would only come from them if you're able to convince them that, hey, this is what you're going to deliver. This is what is expected of you. And therefore, these are some of the things that we must concentrate and focus on. Okay? And of course, no alignment, no adoption. So if you don't have these leaders aligned, then adoption is not going to happen and acceptance is not going to come through. Great. So again, the art of progress is to preserve order and change, and to preserve change amid order. There's a lot of change that is happening, but there are certain things which are the backbone of our domain and of our profession as learning and development practitioners, okay? Our ability to connect with business, understand what is it that they're aiming for. If there is a CEO who comes to me that today says, well, you know, I want to have this goal of 2x, 3y. I want to double my revenues twice in 3 years. Then there's a string of things that that particular individual and that particular business is going to do, because whatever they're doing today is not going to help them to double their revenues. And when that happens and you're on the table and you understand that they are stepping into different markets, they are adopting different technologies, etc., then there will be implications, workforce implications, and more accurately, for us people, a lot of effort with respect to learning and development that we would be spearheading for them, okay? But the basics must not be abandoned, is something that I wanted to tell you. If you have those basics right, then you can bring in AR, VR, gamification. These are modes. These are pieces that you can plug in to make it more effective, certain things which were not available to us before. But if that part is not done right, the diagnostics is not done right, then you will end up creating something which will not achieve what it was meant to achieve. Okay, and then the whole thing is going to continue. I've been in this line of work for about 24 years, and so often we are trivialized for our efforts. And I think that sort of a trivialization of our efforts can be arrested if we do things the right way by following the fundamentals and the basics. A simple logic method. Yeah? So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for your time.
Huge round of applause for him. Thank you so much, Amit sir.
Thank you.